So, hey everyone, welcome to the Hitchhiker's Way podcast. I'm your host, Aishwarya, and I am super pumped up to host James Borow, the founder of Shift.com and Market AI. James Borough actually started Shift.com. He has worked with big clients like from Microsoft, LinkedIn, and you name it. And he sold the company to Brand Networks for 50 million. And then Brand Networks took the technology used by Shift.com and sold it to Snapchat. Is that right?
That is correct. And then I spent a number of years at Snap helping build up the ads business there.
That is super awesome. So James also has a startup now, and he's also an active angel investor now. So first of all, thanks for joining the podcast. It's thanks for taking the time to join.
Yeah, I thank you for asking me. It's very cool that you're doing this. It's hard to get yourself to do it. We were talking before that myself and my co-founder started doing a podcast as well, and it's hard to email people and ask. It's hard to actually get it all together. So it's very cool you're doing it, and thank you for having me on.
I'm super glad. I think we should start out with your childhood. Can you give a bit of a background to yourself, like your childhood and your upbringing? And it is said that people are shaped because of their childhood. It can be traumatic or it can be good as well. What was your case and how did it shape your life?
Yeah, it was. I had a pretty awesome childhood. I grew up outside of Chicago, so about like 30 miles north of Chicago. And I'd say the big things. My mom was an entrepreneur. She ran a bunch of TV channels, so kind of like TV channels you've never heard of. So if you may be too young, but like you used to like channel flip on like DirecTV or something, and there'd be like 500 channels. She used to run a bunch of the random ones on TV that had to do with like health and wellness and travel and things like that. And so we were kind of just always taught that you grow up and start a business. And so I think that made a really big impact. It was either that or you became like a lawyer. And I think starting a business just seemed a lot more fun. So I think that's part of the reason why I ended up doing that.
So your mom was a part of the reason you ended up starting a business. Like she was the sole reason behind.
Yes. Yeah. And to the extent, actually, it's kind of a funny story. My first business partner and really kind of the person who helped me kind of get into tech, who you should have on this podcast, it's a guy named Clark Landry. And yeah, he's like one of the most in Los Angeles, probably one of the most like prolific angel investors. He started and sold a bunch of companies, but I was introduced to him by my mom. My mom met him at a conference, like a tech conference, and was like, "My son really wants to get in tech. Can I like have him buy you a cup of coffee?" So she like made me go meet with Clark, and then I ended up working for him, and then we ended up starting Shift together, and then we've done a bunch of investing together. So yeah, my mom definitely had a very big impact on everything.
So what were you doing before meeting Park?
I was working for a startup my mom was at, and I was actually going to go to law school. So I went to college, and then I got into law school, and I deferred for a year. And
I th
during that year, I went
you
to
I think you
work.
went to Vanderbilt. Is it Vanderbilt
Yeah,
or
yeah, I went to Vanderbilt, yeah, in Nashville, and then I was going to go to law school at George Washington University in Washington D.C. And I ended up basically a friend of mine and an advisor and a kind of a mentor was like, "Why don't you see if you can get like 1 year of exposure, kind of doing entrepreneurial stuff? Because I know you want to do that." So I got a deferment from the dean, and I moved out to California. My mom, once again, got me a job pretty much out here. And that is subsequently how I ended up meeting Clark. It's also how I met my wife, and a bunch of my
that's
business partners.
amazing.
Is very yeah. So it was definitely to go back to your initial question. I would say like my mom's a pretty big impact on all of it.
That's totally awesome. I heard a story that your first business was with your sister. You started a company with your sister. Uh,
Yeah,
it was
I
BuzzFeed
helped
for
her
Women.
start it. Yeah,
Mm.
I helped her start it. She it was kind of in the early days. Once I decided I wanted to sort of be in tech, I was really I was like pretty just like fascinated by Facebook and all the kind of identity use cases of it. And so Facebook had launched something called Facebook Connect, which now is like Facebook Login. So it's like you log into an app with Facebook. And my sister was running basically this thing called Girls Guide 2. Kind of think of it as like Quora or like Reddit for women.
Mm.
And so it was starting to get traction, but there was like guys coming onto the platform giving advice to women, and like that wasn't the point. It was supposed to be all women. So we had the idea to use Facebook Connect to make sure that if you were a female, you could get in. If you were a male, you couldn't. And that ended up getting featured by Facebook when they rolled out Connect publicly. So it was like CNN and Huffington Post and all these like really big brands. And then it was my sister's company, Girls Guide, which I helped her on. So that was kind of like one of my first kind of exposures into working like with Facebook, or I guess now Meta. And then fast forward, now, I mean, we worked really closely with them for forever. I don't even know, like 15 years. But it all kind of started from that.
So, is there something that you learned from doing all of that, and you're applying that to the business ventures you've started after that?
Yeah, I think in general, like my big takeaway is like, like send the email. Like people will respond, and like there's just no, it's like that Wayne Gretzky quote and Michael Scott quote, the like miss 100% of the shots you don't take kind of thing. I think that like we kind of figured that out very early on when we started playing around with the Facebook stuff. I mean, I remember it was like we're like, oh, should we do this? Is Facebook going to get, are they okay with us using the API this way? And I think in general, what we learned was that like these big tech companies want people innovating on top of their APIs, and so like you just have to have kind of like the willingness to do it. But a lot of that led to us. I mean, I remember going to Facebook's headquarters when it was on Page Mill Road, like in 2009, and it was like I think they were just pumped that people were doing cool stuff. So I think like in general, like, and even now we're doing some really cool stuff on top of open AI's APIs, and it's the same kind of thesis. Just like you got to like test these things early and play with them, and like good things usually will come out of it.
Awesome. So, circling back, you were supposed to go to law school, but you were deferred, and you just went on to pursue entrepreneurship. You told that you worked on the startup that your mom was working at, and then you started the company, or did you help your sister along the way, and then you started a shift.com, or
Yeah. Yeah. So once my mom introduced me to Clark Landry, and then we became really good friends, and then we started Shift together. So he was my co-founder in Shift, and that was at the time probably I don't know, if not the first, one of the first three Facebook like approved ads companies. And the way we got that partnership in place with Facebook was actually we originally, after seeing kind of how powerful their APIs were for my sister's company, we realized this is like really good for ads. Like you can target ads based on all this information. So we started going to Facebook applications, which again really don't exist anymore, but they used to be, there was like Farmville and things like that. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but you would go to Facebook, you install
Facebook
the app,
games?
and you could like, yeah, it was effectively the same kind of thing. Yeah, you could do all this stuff on Facebook. Facebook at a period of time, everyone was spending all their time on, and you could like, there was games and all this stuff within that
Hmm.
ecosystem. And so we went to those applications and were like, hey, we want to sell ads for you. And so we were selling ads to like really big companies. And Facebook ended up, I was like 24 or 25 at the time. Facebook ended up sending us a cease and desist letter saying you can't do that anymore. And we were like, all right, this isn't good. And I was like terrified. It's like getting a piece of mail from Facebook at 24 um, was not a great feeling. But we asked them, can we come to your office and show you what we're trying to do? And so that's was the first time I ever went to Facebook. So we went there. I remember I showed up in a suit and tie. Everyone was wearing like t-shirts and jeans. And I was like, immediately I was like, I screwed this part up. But we're like, listen, we're not trying to do anything bad. We're just trying to help you guys sell ads. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to launch an ads business. So you can be one of the first partners on top of the ads API. And that's really kind of how that business, accelerated from being kind of a little thing to at one point it was one of the largest Facebook ads kind of tools like in the country. So it was a pretty cool experience.
Well, that sounds like roller coaster ride.
Yeah, it was not.
You were almost scared
Yeah,
that you were going to shut the business down, and then Facebook calls you and offers you another offer.
yeah, no, it was crazy, but yeah, I feel like things like I think Facebook knew our intentions were really good. We just didn't, we didn't even know they were going to launch an ads business. We didn't even know what an ads API was at the time. So it was a pretty interesting experience.
That's really cool. So you started out as a lawyer, but you built Shift.com. Yeah, did you learn coding before?
I'm not a developer. I would call it kind of more of like a product manager, sort of product marketing. I would say like those are the I would put myself in, but I'm a little bit of like yeah, I'm not I can't write code. I have a very good understanding of I think like what can be built and how fast it should take. Yeah, I think that's been unfortunate. And I have some really good friends I've worked with for a very long time that have made it. I think at this point I trust them like explicitly. I have a group of friends that worked at Shift with me, and then we all went to Snapchat together, and then we started this business together. So at this point, I think everyone has a lot of trust.
That's awesome. So how important do you think a founder should be able to code in this era?
I think now, I think it's probably not that important, to be honest. I think like with AI, like if you kind of think about what's happening in tech right now, it's like all the real tech is happening at like the true AI level. So like you can think of that as like Anthropic or OpenAI or Google. Like that is true technical research driven work. And then in some ways you have companies like mine which are like commercializing that tech, right? I think there will be a huge focus going forward on like go to market strategy. I think building really kind of beautiful design is going to continue to be important. I think especially as things move to more of like a chat based sort of like interface, it's not just going to be a bunch of text being spit back at you. It's going to there's going to be nuance to it. So I think ironically like sales, marketing, product marketing, I think that actually is probably more important now than ever because AI has like sort of at least flattened a little bit of like the playing field in terms of uh, tech. That's different. Like if you're actually building an LLM, like I do think being a brilliant researcher, brilliant developer there probably makes a huge difference. But we're all kind of now drafting off that work if you're going to be like intellectually honest about it.
So if coding jobs are going to become less because AI is getting stronger, do you think more people will start businesses and get into marketing more in the future?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know if it'd be less. I just think the jobs. I mean, I guess in theory maybe it'd be less, but I just think that work. I think a lot of development work will happen at more of like the foundational level versus like the application level, right? And like what I tend to, at least my current business, I would look at is very much at like the application kind of level or layer. And that layer, I think, is going to be less, the outcome is going to be less impacted by how good a developer you are. And instead, how good of a marketer you are, how good, your overall business strategy is, like how focused you are on the problem set. So I think that's my gut of where things will go, but we'll find out.
Anything is going to happen the very next day. Anything can happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, circling back to Shift.com, I heard that in the early days, you and your co-founder used to just cold call a lot of people. So personally, did you find that you had a natural thing for sales and you were good at it, good at selling ideas? If not, how did you become better at cold emailing or cold calling each step?
Yeah, I think it's probably similar to like you doing these podcasts in some ways where like the first one is like 100 times harder than the second one, and so I think when it came to us, like, I mean, we just needed customers, so we were like, and we didn't know anyone, so we literally just started sending out emails to kind of agencies, anyone who would listen to us. Now I think like also we had the benefit of like Facebook was very cool at the time. Everyone was like, it's sort of like maybe even more in the zeitgeist than like TikTok today. But like people were curious, like they wanted to know how they could take advantage of this thing. So I think that that made it a lot easier. But yeah, we just literally beat the pavement, showed up at conferences, sent out emails all day. You know, at some point, but I think like once we started collecting enough logos, like big brands, it became much easier. So I do think there's like a lesson there of like we started, remember we started like kind of like local mom and pop brands, and then kind of just kept trading up into the point where we got Microsoft. And then once you had Microsoft, you were now safe to work with. Kind of, anyone can work with you if Microsoft can work with you. So I think there was a little bit of like a strategy there that, but I think at the time, to be honest, we didn't even know what we were doing. We were just like trying to get people to use the stuff.
So, did you like have experience cold calling before the startup? Like, were you good at it? How did you get better
No,
at cold
I don't know if I was good at it. I mean, it worked, but no, we had no experience. We were just like, I mean, it was like we were just taking our shots. I mean, same way how you email me. We were just totally willing to be rejected. Like pretty shameless and pretty thick skin. And it was definitely good though to do it. And even like we did spend money. Like we went to conferences, and that's like when you're, at least for me, when you're that young, it's like pretty intimidating. Like just like a weird your first time kind of like at like some tech conference trying to sell some big brand on something was was definitely a new experience. But I think we were just so naive that we were just like, let's just keep going and try everything we can.
So, if there's a founder who would like to hear an advice from you about cold calling, what would you advise them?
Yeah, I think like it's just repetition. It's like anything. I think make yourself do 20 calls a day for a month. Like you will get like way better. But like I think you have to put some form of structure and sort of repetition, and like get the sort of compounding effects of just like doing the same thing over and over again. I don't think it's rocket science. I just think it's annoying and it's like hard work. But like that is, like the ability to like be annoying and like, and just repetitive as a founder is a pretty big skill. I would say like on top of that, like one thing that I always focused on, and I still do try to do it to this day, is like not only should you be like relentless on like reaching out to people, but like you need to respond immediately. Like people will derive so much. People for some reason or another think responding to things quickly is like a sign of intelligence. There's just something about it. And so I would make sure people understand that like that's a big part of it. It's like not just do you get like the initial outreach, but it's like how quickly you're following up, how engaged are you? I think that's probably a really important.
That's awesome. So, I heard that Clark was actually introduced by your mom, and you got pretty close with him, and you invested in a lot of companies with him, and you started a startup with him, which is Shift.com. But then Market AI came up right now, your startup, and you're doing it with your best friend, Daniel Drucker.
Yeah, so there's a group of us from Snapchat that are all co-founders in it. So yeah, it's myself, Daniel, there's a guy Sean Friedland, Chris Lorenz, and we're all yeah, we've worked together for a
Working
very long
together.
time, so it's cool. Yeah.
So, how would you advise other founders to find their right co-founders? How did you find the perfect people to work with?
Yeah, I mean, at least for me, it's been like these people were all friends first, and then we decided we wanted to, do something other. It's different. I think like we have a different approach than maybe other people, but like, I mean, you know, I've worked with a lot of these people for 17 years or 16 years now, and like we like when we started working together, we are like, let's all try to work together forever. So like we want to start companies again and again and again together, but like we all are friends. Like we were all in each other's weddings or at each other's weddings and things like that. So we all had kids kind of all at the same time. So I think like we are, I would say primarily, I would say like, if you have a really good friend that you trust, um, it could become a really great co-founder. I'm sure there's stories where it backfires, but in our case, it's been really, really beneficial.
So, you were friends together for a very long time and you started a business and you all
Yeah.
worked together for a very long time.
Yep.
How do you handle co-founder tension? Is there any co-founder tension while building out, you've built out companies, right? There might be some
Yeah.
ideas which are conflicting.
Yeah. I think we try to like, I'm better at it now that I'm older than when I was younger, I'm sure. But in general, now it's like really try to be just like transparent and honest and not be passive aggressive. And, and like I think just like making sure you're aligned, like truly aligned to like what the goals are. Um, Not on even like a day to day basis, but like from like a long term perspective, I think that is super important. But yeah, I mean, I think it's hard, but in our case, I think everyone knows exactly why we're doing what we're doing, so it makes it a little easier.
That's awesome. So you started, I just want to ask, you started two companies and you also invested on a lot of companies. So, and you've been on the marketing side for so long, the product side. And I just would like to know what are some kind of strategies that early stage founders could use to gain more customers. It could be very simple, or it could be something that you've used. It could be unconventional, anything.
Yeah, I think so far the most effective thing I've seen, honestly, is do a podcast. I think like it's shocking how useful it is. I think like if someone wants to listen to what you have to say and like takes some value out of what you're deriving, they're probably more likely to want to try to use your product. And so I've been shocked by how beneficial myself and my co-founder Daniel doing our podcast has been in terms of just getting customers. So again, I think people like want to know who's behind. I just people want to understand who they're working with, kind of what they stand for, why they're doing it. And it's also super easy. I mean, like it's obviously like I mean, we're doing one right now. It's like it's I know you put a prep work and you have to it's like annoying because you have to do this stuff, but like this isn't that hard. We're not like climbing a
Yeah.
mountain right now. So I think people should put themselves out there and do stuff like this, and I think you'd be shocked by how useful it is in terms of getting customers.
Talk about your podcast, Taking Inventory. I think it's really great. Uh, so, how do you get customers from there? What was the idea behind it?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that
we
right?
so yeah, it kind of comes back to like so what we're trying to build. To sort of take two parts. It's like with our company market, we're basically trying to build like an AI growth assistant. So if you are a brand or you're an e-commerce store, we think it's very logical that there should be like an AI that knows everything about your business. You can talk to it, ask it questions, and it can go do stuff for you to help you
And
increase
that
your
is
sales.
Market AI.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. And so we
Hmm.
started building that, and then we started realizing there's like so many places now that you can try to advertise because there's been like this explosion. There's a guy named Eric Seufert who's like a pretty influential leader in marketing tech, and he's got this line, "Everything's an ad network," and so you see like ads everywhere now. And so we were thinking about what we were building on the market side, and then we were just thinking about all these different places that are being commercialized, and we're like, that's kind of an interesting podcast to just talk to people that are either now starting to have ad supported businesses or are like in the mix of all that. So on the podcast, it's ranged from like we had the founder of like Serve Robotics that spun out this self-driving delivery bots out of Uber, and they're now putting ads on these robots, to deliver you like a burrito, like in the city. But it's like fascinating because the ads basically make it where the business model is now like totally sustainable. So like ads actually make it where you can now get like delivery, last mile delivery, like for less. And he's got this big vision too of it will actually decrease the number of deaths because so many car related deaths are within a mile of your house. So on the other side, we had the former White House chief correspondent for CNN, and she came on and talked about like how ads impact political elections. And so it's like kind of like it's just like shocking how much marketing and ads make an impact like on your day to day life. And so that's been just sort of like fascinating for us to just like have these conversations, and like we learn a ton, and then it does help us back on the product side think about like, okay, if you're going to have this like AI assistant that's going to help you grow your business, where does it have to help you? How does it have to help you? It kind of all feeds back into each other.
For podcasts, mainly you send a lot of cold emails, and you would have sent a lot of cold emails. Have you ever realized what works and what does not work? What does a good cold email should consist of?
Twitter or X has been by far the most effective, like without a doubt. I DM people. I mean, a lot of them I know I've met in the past, or friends of friends. I would say most. I think you know, at least for me, the most effective thing has been either like directly reach out, Twitter, DM someone. Most people respond, or go through a friend of friend. It doesn't hurt to ask, and people are like generally flattered to be asked to like tell their story. And also, if they say no, it's not like they like are going to be mad at you. So just go for it.
Yeah. So, how do you think someone should reach out to you? Like, if let's say I'm writing a cold email to you, you do angel investing, right? If I'm writing a cold email to you and I just want you to reply, and how do you think my cold email should be very good that you will just open it? Oh my God, this person, I have to just talk to this person and I have to just hear their idea and about their startup and help them out to
Like
do
I,
that.
I thought the way you did it, I feel like you should tell people because you did a really good job with it. Uh, I
Really?
think, yeah, that was like short. You like gave background about. I mean, like you're 17, right? It's like that was like
Yeah.
impressive. It was like your story is impressive. I was like, yeah, like I absolutely should respond to her. So I think, yeah, I think like let people know who you are, keep it short, and make it easy on someone to say yes. It's probably not a bad thing, but like, you should like interview yourself, and you can talk about that one day. You did a great job on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What was the best cold email you've ever gotten before? Like
Best
you
cold
sh
email I ever got. That's a good question. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good one. It's like a
I,
stupid one, but I got like a long time ago. Someone randomly solicited me to invest in like GitHub secondary, and that ended up getting bought by Microsoft, and so that was really awesome. And I like didn't even think of it. It was like very random. I think it was on LinkedIn, and so I'm sure that person made some money off the deal, but like it was a great investment. So that was good. I was happy I like responded to that. I guess that's a good one.
that's awesome. So just going back to Market AI. So you started Market AI as trust in the first place. Can you walk me through what trust did? And you told me what Market AI does before. Can you tell how Market AI actually works? Like if I'm a user and I'm starting a Shopify store or something, and I'm
Yeah,
trying to use the product.
yeah. You can go to withmarket.com and you can try it like today. It's basically you connect your accounts, you connect like Shopify, Facebook, TikTok, Amazon, all the stuff that your business is run on, and then you now kind of have, for more or less, you kind of think of it as like a chat GPT for your business. So you can ask it a bunch of questions about like how your business is performing. You can ask it basically advice on where you should be trying to improve things, and then it actually can push things out for you. So you can be like, hey, I want to know like my five best performing products, and I want to try to test some new audiences on Meta for them, and it will go out and just do it all for you. So it's like it's cool. It's like, yeah, it's the idea is that it becomes like a part of your team, and over time, we're doing a bunch of things where it's like not just you talking to it, but then it can be you, your co-founder, talking to it, almost like a group chat about what you should be doing for your business.
You can just easily
So yeah,
brainstorm with it.
yeah, and it will
Brainstorming.
actually do things. Yeah, it will actually go out and do stuff for you, but it's all based off of your business data. And yeah, so check it out. If anyone wants to check it out, DM me or something, or check it out on the website.
All right. So, what did trust do before? How did trust pivot into Market AI?
Yeah, originally what we were doing was basically we're helping businesses standardize all their business data in order to get better payment terms with the ad platforms. It's a kind of a nuanced problem set, but what we realized, and the idea really was that small businesses are often much healthier than they're giving credit to. So a Facebook or a Snapchat doesn't understand who these small businesses are, so they kind of don't care about them sometimes when they're spending a lot of time on the big guys. But in reality, there's an opportunity to spend time with the littler guys and help them grow. And so we were building a tool set to do that. And then through a variety of different reasons, and I would say in particular because of what just had happened going on with OpenAI, and this is, this is like a year ago now, we were like, we can use that same data set, and instead of helping you prove to an ad platform how valuable you are, why don't we go ahead and use AI to help you make your business more valuable yourself? So we kind of flipped it from being about selling the software into a vendor to instead selling the software directly to the brand itself. And it's been great. But yeah, but because we changed a lot of it, we were like, let's change the name. And so it went from trust to market.
That's amazing. So, I also found a reply of yours to a tweet to Reed Jackson. It was about Gemini.
Yes.
So you talked about a thesis here. It talks about orchestration and collaboration of walled garden market AIs. Can you go deeper
Yeah.
on that and explain your thesis?
Very much in terms of like of why we're building market the way we are, where you will eventually have, if you are a business and you want to sell stuff, right? You will sell them where people spend their time, which are typically these wall gardens. You'll sell them on YouTube, you sell them on TikTok, you sell them on Facebook, and all of those systems are now building their own AI to help you sell those products directly on those platforms. So Meta, for example.
Can I just hear what walled garden AIs are? They are just
Oh,
AIs developed by TikTok and
yeah. So a walled garden it's a kind of it's a nomenclature for something like Facebook, something like TikTok, Amazon. The reason why they're called walled gardens is that like they're not accessible to the open web, so all the data stays in there. They're kind of like a black box. Like you don't know why, when you're like trying to get something to like go viral on Instagram or X, you don't know what's going on there, right? So it's called a wall garden. They're kind of these black boxes. Kind of think of it like that. And so each of them is going to have their own AI system that is built to help them extract as much value as possible out of you, right? In particular, when you're advertising. And that's awesome. I actually think it'll end up being a good thing for both them and for you. But it's going to be very complicated for you as a brand to manage all these different AIs across all these places now that serve ads. And so it strikes us as very logical for actually to have an abstraction layer, so a layer of AI that actually helps you manage all these different AIs. And so, and that will be, yeah, it's sort of inevitable, but that will allow you to at least understand what's really happening with your business, and not be so beholden directly to what Meta or Google say you should do, because like their incentives are often, they care more about them than they care about you, just inherently, because they're for-profit businesses.
in every platform, everything works, like every ad or every post you put works differently, right? So, how do you think a, a collaboration could be done? Because if I post something in LinkedIn, there's going to be 10,000 people viewing that. If I post the same thing in X, there are going to be 2K views. That's really low in X. That is really high in LinkedIn. How do you think collaboration could be made?
Yeah,
How do you think a
when
single
we
layer
talk
could be made?
about yeah, when we talk about collaboration, we're actually talking about it from the brand side. So the collaboration is actually helping you maybe work with your agency on how do I manage across these different
Oh,
things? How should I deploy my money, for example? Um, so we're talking about collaborating with all the stakeholders. And if you think about advertising, a good example is like, ads tend to be like a lot of them are videos, right? So like you create this video and then eventually it becomes an ad, right? There's a lot of back and forth between all these people about what the video should look like and why and how much we spend on it and where we should spend it. So we're talking about actually helping the teams themselves collaborate in the context of them advertising or marketing across all these different channels. So and that is the bigger you get, the more channels you're advertising across, the more complicated it gets.
That's awesome. So let's talk about the future of market AI. What's your next ambition?
Yeah, we're just gonna keep on shipping stuff. I mean, it'll be like very iterative, but I think like 6 months from now, you know, almost I think we'll be able to, you could pretty much ask it to do anything pertaining to your brand and marketing, and it will be able to help you do it. And so, yeah, we just got to keep shipping. Just like every week, it gets a little better, a little bit smarter, can do more stuff. So it's like we were talking about cold calling. It's like just this compounding effect. We just got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
So you're going to iterate more and you're going to put more products out. So speaking about the future, let's say I'm not being delusional. Let's say AGI is somehow developed tomorrow. What would market AI do to provide value in that AGI era?
Yeah, even in that era, ironically, at least this is the thesis, there's still going to have to be a bunch of administration, a bunch of coordination that takes place between brands and their stakeholders and their agencies. So, I don't think the idea like they're still going to have enterprise software, right? Now, I think it will be verticalized, right? And I think if you look at what we're building, like if it ends up being like a vertical solution for a very distinct problem set, which is how do I grow my business via marketing? And when you are growing via marketing, you're spending money. And so the decision about how you spend that money, where you spend that money, who has the ability to spend that money is still, I think, going to require some human intervention, regardless if there were AGI. At least until they take over. I mean, which I don't think will happen. But so yeah, I think you'll see it across industries. I think I just think it's going to be we're just in like a rewiring of like B2B software. Like it's just gonna all the old interfaces are going to change. A lot of the work that was done in the past, I think, will become somewhat um, you know less useful. But I still think you're going to have vertical solutions to problems that are bespoke to an industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's let's talk about B2B startups. So do you think there's a back office work that needs to be solved, and there could be a startup that could make accounting easier, HR easier, or anything related to back office easier? Is there any problem?
I don't have one. I mean, I'm focused on on the marketing side, but I think there are people out there who have some great ideas and are going to build some really cool stuff. And it will probably look and feel a lot like what we're building, to be honest. But it will be bespoke to the vertical and the problem set. But yeah, I think you'll see everything. Everything will everything will have to start to integrate AI into their workflows, and as that happens, the tooling changes. There's a variety of things really kind of get disrupted pretty quickly. So I think you'll see um, kind of a whole new wave of B2B software kind of come into play.
So let's say apart from marketing, you are looking to start a new company. In what area would you start? Which area excites you most right now?
I think there's some really cool stuff on like the real estate side. I think there's really cool stuff actually on like the sales management. So like commission, like kind of figuring out how do you actually like make salespeople a little bit more effective. That's like an interesting problem set. But we got our hands full with marketing, so I'm not doing anything for the time being.
I understand. So I'm gonna read out a quote from Terence McKenna, and I'll just read out the quote and I'll just ask you the question. Nature loves courage. You make the commitment, nature will respond to that commitment by removing impossible obstacles. Dream the impossible dream, and the world will not grind you under. It will lift you up. This is the trick. This is what all these teachers and philosophers who really counted, who really touched the alchemical gold, this is what they understood. This is a shamanic dance in the waterfall. This is how magic is done. By hurling yourself into the abyss and discovering it is a feather bed. I read the quote. So here's a question. I just want you to compare this quote with some achievements or any kind of situation where you took the most courage and you did impossible things and something impossible happened. Like there must have been an obstacle that you know that it was never it was not possible to do that thing. It was not meant for you, but you had a lot of courage to do it, and it came to you because you did it. Is there anything like that? Do you resonate with this quote?
I'm not sure to the extent of that. I think I've been fortunate where it hasn't been uh, something so dramatic, but I, I mean, I guess maybe professionally, probably a bunch of the work we did at Snap, like no one thought that thing could be a real ads business. I think people kind of discounted us like the whole way. Facebook was ripping off all of our units. Instagram was copying it. There's a bunch of stuff we had that was working against us. And I think everyone just was like committed to the goal, and we built like a really, really pretty impressive ads business, which today, is like what we built is the entire business. So I think that was like an example of like, we were going up against uh, sort of Goliath, and we were David, and we kind of, got the thing out, and I
David
definitely think
versus
that
the
was like,
lion.
yeah. And I mean, listen, that story's not done yet. Like, there's still a lot left, but I think uh, if you would have told me we would have pulled it off to the level that we did, I would have been pretty ecstatic. So yeah, I think that's probably a good example.
That's all right. Uh, So, do you really understand the meaning of life? Do you derive your definition of life from the work you do, or what is your definition of life?
No, I definitely not derived from work. It's derived from like my family and my kids and my wife. But yeah, I got two little girls. They're incredible. Um, I think
That's really great.
so far, yeah, I would say so far what I've seen, like the closest thing for me to definition of life or meaning of life is kids. I don't even remember life before them. So yeah, that's the best answer I got to that one.
Oh yeah, I think that's the end of the podcast. Thanks for coming up and taking your time. It means a lot to me. So thank you for being here.
I appreciate it, and it's very cool you're doing this. Thank you for reaching out. And yeah, if I got any friends I can introduce to you, uh, email me and I'll try to make some intros.
All right, that would be so great. So, this is Aishwarya signing off from the Hitchhiker's Way podcast.